Hello everyone, my name is Willem Tastenois and I'm a project manager here at Odoo in Belgium, which basically means that I implement all kinds of Odoo projects all around the world. But the subject of today will be all about how artificial intelligence can spare time to your accountants when processing vendor bills. But before we start, let me explain you why you should use our amazing artificial intelligence. Well, first of all, there is a dedicated team of developers that are working around the clock in order to make our artificial intelligence every time better and better all over again. And thanks to their huge effort in the last year, well, we recently managed to obtain a 95.88% of recognition rate on vendor bills. That's a huge percentage. And it basically means that our artificial intelligence will make fewer mistakes than human accountants. But it doesn't only mean that they will make less mistakes. It will also make sure that they can use all that lost time on spending time on what they're really good at, instead of losing unnecessary time on manual input work. So let me show you how it works. When we scan a bill through our artificial intelligence, well, we will basically try to capture all necessary information so that we can automatically process all vendor bills. So we will start by capturing the total amount as well as the subtotal, the currency, but also dates, the invoice date, the due date. The supplier will also be attached immediately to the invoice. If he already exists in a contact form, we will capture it based upon his name, his address, his mail, or even his website. And don't worry if it doesn't exist, because if it doesn't exist, we will create it for you on the fly, so that you don't have to spend time anymore in creating your vendors manually. We will not only create the vendor contact, because if the bank account is in the image, we will also capture the bank account and fill it in on the contact form so that you don't have to fill it in manually anymore. So that you can use all this information immediately to process payments through Odoo and send them to your bank. Also, taxes and invoice references are immediately captured by artificial intelligence. But we want everybody to use our artificial intelligence and not only Odoo users. That's why recently we added the possibility to integrate it with your own software. If you would like to know how it works without having an Odoo database, you can now go on our website on www.odoo.com/AI and you can test it yourself. You can use one of our sample bills, or you can just upload a PDF file on your own and see the result. It's that easy. So, besides that, what's new in Odoo 14? Well, first of all, as I mentioned already, we can now capture immediately bank accounts as well as the SWIFT on the image so that we will create it for you. Also, the better partner recognition is very visible because we can now not only catch the partner by the name, but also by the address, the mail, as well as the website and the VAT number. We already had currency capturing, but the precision has been way better than before. So, last but not least, we already had artificial intelligence on our vendor bills, but we don't want to spare only time to your accountants. We also want to spare time to all of your employees. And we believe that they lose a lot of time when recording their expenses. So that's why in Odoo 14 we launched artificial intelligence on expenses as well, which is a great tool because now they can just upload with their smartphone pictures of their expenses, and Odoo Artificial Intelligence will take all of their input work immediately, automatically in Odoo. So don't waste time anymore on boring work and let Odoo take care of it. So let me show you what it looks like in a demo. So we're going to start by entering an Odoo database. And first of all, we will dive into our document application. Because of course, we don't only have vendor bills to be completely paperless. All of your mail, all of your documents, you can immediately include it in Odoo. That's how we work internally as Odoo as well. We have a third-party provider that will scan all our paper mail and send it immediately to an email alias so that it will arrive at the correct place immediately in Odoo. and the person that is responsible for the mail can just send it to the correct department. So let's have a look here. We have some workspaces that I just created up front. I have one for marketing, I have one for HR, and I have one for finance. All of them have their own specific tags. Thanks to the tags that you can easily add on documents, you can find and filter exactly the documents that you want in your own workspace. And if we take a look at the internal workspace, well, there are some documents right here. Now, we have a contract for marketing as well as publicity for marketing. Well, the responsible of the courier can just select those two documents, only the two of them, and send them to marketing. We also have an employee contract here. We can just select that one as well and send it to HR. And finally, we have a bunch of invoices, all the invoices of the third quarter of 2020, and that one we're going to send to finance. So now the job of the internal person is done, and let's see how it looks like in the additional workspaces. Well, all of them have their own tags, so I can immediately add them the correct tags so that I can filter on them lately. But if we open, for example, the invoices, we will see that it's a huge PDF file with a lot of different pages. Some invoices have several pages, other ones are single pages. So I would like to treat them immediately in Odoo before sending them to accounting. Well, I can now just easily click on Split PDF, and I will arrive in this new window where I can easily manage all my documents, merge and split them together before sending them to accounting. So for example, this first vendor bill is a 2-page bill, so I can just click over here in order to merge 2 pages together and have a vendor bill of 2 pages. This one is a two-page bill as well, so I'm going to do the same right here. Some useless information, as the general conditions over here, I can just deselect so that I can get rid of them right after. So now that I'm done working immediately in Odoo and create my documents, well, I can send them immediately to accounting. All of the action buttons are immediately available above here, so I can click on Create Bill. By clicking on Create Bill, I'm immediately splitting the PDF based upon what I configured before, and I've sent them immediately to accounting. Our document application and our accounting application are completely integrated together, so behind the scenes we already send it to accounting. But we didn't send it only to accounting, we also send it immediately to our artificial intelligence. The 2 remaining pages, I can just get rid of them by clicking on Discard. So let's see what happened here in the finance folder. Well, first of all, the PDF has been splitted based upon what we configured before, and we immediately added also tags on there so that I can easily filter on them later on. And if I want to see how it has been treated in accounting, I don't lose track of it because I can just select the document, click on the link here, and I will immediately dive into the accounting system. So enough said about documents, let's jump back to the dashboard and jump into our accounting application. When I start in accounting, I arrive at this dashboard. Well, basically, this dashboard says everything that the accountant needs to know, because we can immediately see, in a glance, all the bills that needs to be validated, for example. So we can see here that we have 7 bills to validate. I can just click on there in order to obtain all the bills that the accountant needs to review. Well, of course, those 7 bills were the bills that we've sent through to the document application. So let's open the first one. The first one is immediately a vendor bill for fruits that will be delivered here at the farm soon. And every time at the right side you will see the image of the vendor bill, at the left side you will see the input screen. So let's jump to the other ones, because we have 7 of them. The next one is about the coffee machine. The third one is about the paper, it's from Renewy. And what you can see here, that it's a vendor bill of 2 pages. So not only single pages are scanned by artificial intelligence, also multiple pages can be scanned through it, and we will capture all necessary information. So we have 4 more. We have one for FedEx, for transport fees. We have another one for the purchase of a new computer from our business analyst that started last week, as well as one for bpost, I think. And the last but not least, a vendor bill of UPS. Also, this one is a 2-page bill. So let's jump back to the first one and see how the artificial intelligence made it through all the process. Well, I can just wait a few seconds so that the artificial intelligence will refresh again, but if I want to move forward, I can also just click on the refresh button. By clicking on the refresh button, well, I will not only refresh the vendor bill itself, but all other vendor bills that have been scanned at the moment will be updated in order to see the result of the capturing from the image. So in a few seconds, we can see the result, and basically all information that we need on the vendor bill has been taken over from the artificial intelligence. So first of all, we created the vendor. Well, what is important to know here is that the vendor didn't exist in the database yet. Just by running it through the artificial intelligence, well, we created it up on the fly. All interesting information has been taken over, as well as the name, the address, the VAT number, etc. But because of the fact that the bank number was also available on the image, we also added it immediately on the contact form so that you can use it later on if you register payments and if you want to send all the information to your bank. You will not need to put any information manually anymore on your bank because every information is already available in Odoo. Besides that, we also scanned the bill reference as well as the bill date and the due date. And if we take a look at the invoice lines, well, first of all, we will try to create you a label that will be visible later by the accountant in the general ledger. Also, the amount without VAT, as well as the correct tax code and the total amount has been taken over completely by the artificial intelligence. So last but not least, the expense account. We don't want your accountants to lose time on every time selecting manually the correct expense account. Well, our artificial intelligence will also work behind the scenes and will remember the combination of the label and the supplier. So that based upon this information and historical data, we will provide you at every moment the correct expense account. It's just a case right over here. It's a Belgium chart of account, but immediately we added the correct expense account for office expenses for personnel. So let's have a look at the other invoices. Well, I'll always use the mouse for the moment, but just keep in mind that you can also use the Alt button in order to skip, to go to the next invoices. Because if you click on Alt, you will see all keyboard shortcuts all over Odoo. So if I want to jump to the next one, I'm going to click on Alt N to see the next one. Also here, basically everything has been taken over. The label is a little bit bigger, but basically all the same information has been captured by the OCR. So let's have a look at the multi-page invoice. Well, the one of renewing, the total amount and some invoice lines were on the second page, but also here everything has been captured correctly, the VAT code is different, and also the expense account is different. So basically everything is correct here as well, and we can just go to the next one. And of course I can continue like that. All the other invoices have been all captured completely and everything has been completely filled in. Also here, for example, for the purchase of the computer, well, we immediately added it on an investment account, so that by validating the invoice, Odoo will immediately create an asset and start depreciating on it. And finally, the one for bpost as well as UPS has also completely been filled in. So what is great about the one of UPS is, besides the fact that it's also a multi-page invoice, well, we also have multiple taxes on here. So also this is not a problem for our artificial intelligence, because we have one line without VAT and another one with 21%. So basically, every single information that we need in order to validate these vendor bills have been completely filled in by our artificial intelligence. The only thing that your accountant should do is just validate them. So he can validate them one by one, but of course it's way more easy to validate them in batch. So therefore, let's go back to the list view, because all the information is filled in. Just easy select all the vendor bills together, go to the action button and post the entries. And by posting the journal entries, we will post all the vendor bills and create all accounting entries behind the scenes. So we talked a lot about vendor bills. Now let's jump into the expenses. Let's open our expenses application, and you can see it immediately as from here. Everything that we're doing right now, you can do it on your mobile phone as well. We have a mobile application available on the App Store or on the Google Play Store that your employees can just use to scan their images and upload the images in Odoo. Also here, they will not only upload them, because we will also send them immediately to our artificial intelligence. I'm going to do it manually here, so I'm just going to click on the upload button. I have some expense tickets over here, 2 for restaurant fees and 1 for parking fees. I'm just going to open them, so that I'm going to upload them in a database, because we're completely working online. You don't even have to keep them anymore, because they are available everywhere in the cloud. So for every expense node, we created one expense. A little bit similar as for the vendor bills. At the right side you can see the image of the expense, and at the left side you can see the input screen. Also here, none of them are filled in, but our artificial intelligence is already scanning them. Before we update the status, let's see what we have. We have 1 parking ticket, we have 1 restaurant's expense, and take a look at the quality of this expense. It's not quite good, but let's see what the artificial intelligence can get out of there. And finally, the third one, it's also a restaurant bill. It's already a little bit better. Now let's jump back to the first one, and also here we can just wait for a while that the OCR will refresh it themselves, or we can just click on the update status button. Well, by clicking on the update status button, we can see what happens, and everything is filled in here as well. First of all, the amount, but also the expense date as well as the reference is immediately taken over from the ticket. So similar as for the vendor bills, there is one thing left, and it's all about the accounting information that need to be filled in there as well. Because most of your employees will not know what impact their expenses need to have in the accounting. So how can we capture the correct expense account so that your employees don't have to do it anymore? And that also your accountants will not lose time on that anymore? Well, how does it work? Well, behind the scenes, our artificial intelligence will categorize all those expenses in different categories. We have 1 for food, for example, 1 for travel, 1 for parking, and we have several categories like that. Well, the user can just link a product to a category, and what is great about products is that on a product you can set the expense account. So that by setting it on the product and linking it to the category, it's immediately filled in as well, and your accountants don't have to do anything else anymore. And that's exactly what we can see here. This one has been categorized as parking, so it was being linked to the correct parking product and the correct expense account. Let's have a look at the other ones. Well, restaurant has been categorized as food, so it's linked to the restaurant product and it's linked to the restaurant fees expense account. And the last one is also categorized correctly as food, so basically all the same information is correct for this one as well. The amount, the date, the reference, and the expense account is correct. Also here, your employees don't have to lose any time anymore in filling in manually some information, because after sending it to the OCR, they can just select them all together, create a report, and send it for approval to the manager. Once they have been approved by the manager, well, they are available for accountants, and because they know that the products are correctly configured, they can just select them all together and validate them in batch and creating the accounting entries behind the scenes. And that's everything that I wanted to show you about artificial intelligence and scanning on vendor bill and expenses. So if you want to test it, you can just go on our website. You can use a sample bill in order to see what information is captured in a few seconds. And if you don't want to use our sample bills, you can just use the upload button in order to upload your own PDF files and see what happens. So let's jump back to our presentation. Because we're at the end of my presentation, I'm now available to answer all your questions. So thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy Odoo experience and enjoy Odoo artificial intelligence. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining this live Q&A session about artificial intelligence. Thank you Winand for this presentation. My name is Quentin and I will be asking you the question tonight. We've received several questions in the chat, so we'll try to be able to answer all of them. Let's start with the first question. Fred is asking and want to know if it's possible to scan quotations from another software to recreate it into Odoo. Is it possible to do that?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. I saw that already Florian and Louis are already answering in the live session. So by the way, Florian and Louis are one of those great developers that are working on our artificial intelligence. I think they already answered, but just to be clear, for the moment we only scan vendor bills as well as expenses. We might add customer invoices maybe in the future, but even the customer invoices cannot be scanned. Also because we think that invoicing will take over that in the future. But anyway, we might add it maybe, but for the moment only vendor bills and expenses. So also quotations, we cannot scan them. So if you would like to import them, well, basically the best way I think is to import them from Excel.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question here that's interesting. It's we want to know exactly how do we train the AI system to recognize the layout of the vendor bills of each vendor.
Yes. So basically it's a little bit technical, I think. I'm not a technical guy, by the way. But our algorithm will use, first of all, the technology of Google in order to transform a PDF file or an image in text. And our artificial intelligence will try to map that information with the fields in Odoo. So first of all, it's not that they will see a template for a supplier, because all supplier invoices will immediately go to the same algorithm. So basically, if a vendor bill is scanned for the first time and the recognition is not good, because some of those fields that I showed in the demonstration are not captured correctly, well, you can learn the artificial intelligence just to basically enter the input manually and fill it in how you should have done it manually. Because, for example, imagine that we have an amount without VAT of 1,000 euros, that our algorithm didn't found it. When you type it in manually and you validate the invoice, the artificial intelligence will look for that amount basically on the fields that Google has given us, and it will learn from there that the amount without VAT will be there. So the algorithm is the first step, and it's always becoming better and better thanks to the users that use it and train it. But at some point, well, the artificial intelligence, the algorithm is maybe not perfect enough. So after the first time that you scanned and validate the bill, imagine that at the second time, well, it's still not well enough for us and the recognition is not good enough. Well, it will trigger a ticket with the developer of Odoo, and only at that moment we will create a template for that specific vendor. What is great about it is if we create a template, well, basically we will push it immediately on our SAS and our Odoo SH databases so that everyone can use it. So we only make the template when the algorithm is not working after the second time.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question was how will Odoo recognize if there is a PO attached to this and let you know if there is a variance
on the variance on the purchase order?
Yeah.
Well, basically, you can install a little module that if the PO number is on the invoice and we capture it, well, we will take over the invoiceable lines from the purchase order. So if we catch the purchase order and we find an open purchase order, or at least open purchase order lines, we will capture it immediately from the purchase order. So the artificial intelligence will not scan the lines from the invoice at that moment, but we will take the lines from the purchase order. So the question is about, what about the variance? Well, basically, there is a configuration on your product that you can define what is the invoicing policy for a product. If you set it on ordered quantities, well, we will immediately take over all the lines from the purchase order. If you set it on received quantities, well, we will only take over the lines from the received quantities. So how can we see the variance? Well, the lines on the invoice will be the ones that can be invoiced, and at the right side you will have the image of your invoice, so you can immediately see if there is a difference.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the explanation. We have also other questions. For example, we have one regarding the languages with the AI. Could you maybe explain how we can automate the entering of non-English bills? So, for example, Arabic documents.
Yeah. Basically, the language is not a problem. We cover all languages, but what is important to know is that the artificial intelligence for the moment is only configured by reading from left to right and from the top to the bottom. So the Arabic one is a problem as well as the Chinese because it's in the opposite round. So Arabic is not covered, I think, for the moment. We might add it maybe in the future. Again, I'm not a product owner, so I don't have a vision on their roadmap, but Arabic language is indeed a problem. All the other ones that are from left to the right is not a problem, and it should have the same recognition. Because basically the first time, if the amount or the field is not well filled in, as I mentioned before, the artificial intelligence will learn from it so that the next time it will be correct.
Okay, maybe one last question because we don't have plenty of time anymore. We were asked also if the data is editable, if the AI doesn't recognize it properly, or if there is a mistake, can you still edit your vendor bills?
Yeah. So of course, yes, the values that are taking over are still modifiable because the invoice is still in draft, and as long as the invoice is in draft, well, you can still change everything. So the values are just taking over as a default value, basically, because they are scanned from the bill, but you can still change everything. It's even further because, as I explained before, by changing it, you will learn the AI. So of course you can change it. Yes, it's not final because we don't validate the invoice for you. It's only you that will validate it later. As from the moment that it's validated, well, then you cannot change the information.
Thank you.